Hello everyone, how's it going? I'm WoWcrendor, and today I want to talk about WoW expansions. With the new expansion, only a few months away, I found an article on the internet that was ranking all the WoW expansions, and I didn't agree with their list. So I wanted to talk about it because I was like, you know what? I'm sure everybody else has their own list, so obviously in the comments you should leave your list of how you rank the WoW expansions below. But I wanted to give my opinion because obviously these are all just subjective. Somebody's gonna be like, I enjoyed Mists of Pandaria the most out of every expansion. And that person's a crazy person, but they're allowed to have that opinion. So let's start with the worst. And I went back and forth between two of them. And the article I read ranked Cataclysm the worst. And I almost did. Is just Draenor or Cataclysm. And then I went with Draenor. And here's why. Draenor, it felt like it wasn't even a full expansion. So they're saying this whole time, oh, garrisons, you're going to be able to choose who your garrison is. You know, it could be in Frostfire. It could be in the Arakoa place, whatever it was called, Peaks or whatever it was. It could be in... God, hold on. What was this zone? Where is this? Oh, Draenor. Spires of Iraq. It could be in Shadowmoon Valley. It could be in Talador. It could be, Gorgrond, wherever, right? And then when it actually came out, they were like, oh, hey, so we didn't have enough time to really do all that. So it's just kind of in Frostfire and Shadowmoon Valley. Enjoy. It's like, oh, okay. So already, off the bat, you had something that you got people hyped up for. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to put mine in the... I wanted to go to, I think, Spires of Iraq. I thought it would look really cool there. And then, nope, can't do that. It's Frostfire, if you're Horde. And I was like, I don't like Frostfire as a leveling zone anyway. I don't want my garrison to be here. And then that already left a sour taste in my mouth. So I was like, all right, fine. Then they put so much effort into doing the character remodels that I think other things kind of took a back seat to it. And even the first major content patch, I believe, only had like the Twitter integration and the selfie camera. And that's pretty bad for a major content patch, right? And then in addition to that, a lot of the content took forever to actually come out after all this had occurred. So, for all these reasons alone, I would say Draenor was my least favorite expansion. And then in addition to that, just garrisons in general, having to practically play a mobile game with your garrison, having to manage it all, having to do this solo player experience and be forced to just chill in your garrison. Professions were useless. You could just go mine, gather herbs. You could do whatever you wanted in your garrison. It made me laugh, actually, because I made a video like a few years before Draenor had even come out called If WoW Was Easier. I'll even link it at the end of the thing if you want to go watch an old WoW video. It's like ancient at this point. And I was like, oh man, where am I? Herbalist Island. I'm like, man, they just give you the herbs for free here. This is great. And like, it's essentially what they did. It blew my mind. They actually did my idea that I was mocking the game for. Is phenomenal. So all these things add up. I enjoyed Draenor for like the initial rush of the expansion, you know what I mean? But once that rush wore off, I was like, I don't want to play this. And I didn't really play it after that. And then, oh my god, I forgot about the story. The timelines. The Garrosh. The Gul'dan. I was convinced they did all that for the WoW movie. The timelines and stuff to get those WoW movie characters kind of thrusted into the game. Like, hey guys, you better like these characters back from Warcraft 2 or whatever, because you know what? Warcraft movie. I was convinced of that. It's like, why even do this dumb timeline thing? You know what I mean? With two Gul'dans. I wasn't a fan. And after thinking of all that, I was like, all right, That's got to be my least favorite expansion. Even saying all that, there were some things I enjoyed. Just not a lot of them. So that was Draenor. Cataclysm would be up next, obviously, as I was arguing between the two. Cataclysm was the drop-off of excitement after Wrath of the Lich King. I think everybody was looking forward to killing Arthas, and then everybody killed Arthas, and then they're like, and here's a dragon. I don't really care as much, and I think a lot of people just stopped playing for that reason. I think they tried to get WoW, quote, hard again, like difficult again, and I think after a more casual-esque expansion like Wrath of the Lich King that introduced things like the looking for group tool and all that, I remember just being in Cataclysm and they were like, all right, we're going to make dungeons hard again. But everybody in the dungeon wasn't very good because they were used to power grinding dungeons and Wrath of the Lich King. And they're like, what is this? I got like CC mobs and stuff. And that alone was bad. I hated that the zones were all split up. So it was like you had to go to Hyjal, and then you had to take a portal over to Uldum, and then you had to go to Twilight Highlands across the world, and it was, I don't know, I didn't really like that. And then the old world was ruined, just like how we're looking at it right now. The old world was ruined, but I honestly wouldn't even have minded the old world being ruined if they would have kept it in like some alternate timeline. They love timelines, right? Where you could go back and see it. That would have been pretty cool. But they didn't. It's still ruined. And I think part of that immersion from Cataclysm of like everything being destroyed ruined the old world by making it be destroyed for this long, right? Like everyone's like, why haven't they repaired everything yet? Why is Deathwing's fire still burning over here when it's been years? Like, they should have fixed something by now, and that just boils down to Blizzard doesn't have the time and resources to put into fixing this all up. Maybe they will for an expansion where they're actually going to go back here again and use it all, but as for right now, it's still all damage. So I think that's another downside, just what the Cataclysm did to the whole world. But I will say, I also didn't like the Goblin and Worgen starting zones, but I do like goblins. I play a goblin, so that's a plus. I like goblins. And even though some of the zones did get revamped, I thought a lot of the revamped zones were actually pretty fun. I enjoyed Old Thousand Needles, but having gone through all the quests again on my WoW leveling series, which was the main point of doing the WoW leveling series actually, was to go back and experience all the Cataclysm changed questing zones. A lot of them were pretty fun. I thought the Barrens was fun. I thought Thousand Needles was fun. I thought some of the new Feralus stuff was fun. There's a lot of cool things they added to questing and the old stuff for newer players that, didn't want to go to the old Barrens quest and grind out things and walk all over. But some people might like that. So overall, I think Cataclysm was a little better than Draenor, and I think a lot of Cataclysm things can still play into today's modern WoW. If you're leveling a new character and you play through all that, you're probably going to have more fun doing that than playing through Draenor. But maybe you might like Draenor. I mean, you don't have to do garrisons anymore, so that's why it's kind of a toss-up for me. But I think Cataclysm is a little better than Draenor was. Oh my god, it's so blinding up here. Next up, Pandaria. And I think Pandaria was looked at as a joke expansion, and I think it actually turned out pretty okay for being a, quote, April Fool's expansion. I thought the zone was amazing looking. I thought a lot of the raids were pretty cool, and I thought the theme and the music and just everything about it was just really, really nice. But what I hated about Pandaria was the dailies. I hated the dailies. I hated them so much. There were so many dailies, And they just flooded you. They're like, dailies, dailies. Here's some dailies. Here's dailies. More dailies. Just crammed them down your throat. And I hated that. I hated the dailies. And I never really liked monks as a new class. I'm not a big fan of the pandas either. Like, they're alright. So, Pandaria to me, I don't think it was that bad. I also didn't really care about Garrosh towards the end of all of it. I thought the Siege of Orgrimmar was kind of okay. But in the end, I thought it was a nice middle of the pack, below average expansion. It was like average below average. And I think that's still better than Cataclysm and Draenor. TBC is what I'd rank right after that. I think TBC was... it's kind of hard to rate TBC because it's also the first expansion that Blizzard ever made. So I think they've learned a lot since that. A lot of... Controversially, some people loved flying, some people didn't like flying. And TBC introduced flying, obviously. So I think if Blizzard could go back and remove flying, they probably would. With the amount that they put in... the amount of effort they put into making it so you have to, like, work to get your flying, you know what I mean? So, I also didn't like in TBC, that's when they started a little bit more of the modernization of WoW. I guess if you're a classic WoW player, that's when they said, hey, you know, Shaman, Paladin, it doesn't have to be Alliance Horde specific, so... You know, you could have Shaman on the Alliance, Paladins on the Horde, all that. So that was a little bit of a downside, because I was like, why are they doing that? They said they wouldn't do that. And that's also when they started doing, what was it? It was some paid, like, race changes. Was it race changes? Faction changes? It was something like that. They started allowing, like, faction or race changes, and then you could start to see the Activision kind of just creeping in there. But in general, the raids were cool. I enjoyed the Blood Elves and the Draenei. I enjoyed leveling in their zones. Then again, I didn't like the Ghost Lands, but I enjoyed the initial Blood Elf starting zone. And everybody loved Karazhan. I don't know anybody who was like, man, I sure hated Karazhan. That was like the staple raid of TBC. I love the zones. I loved Outland. I loved the music of Outland. I loved Nagrand. I always called it Nagrin, but Nagrand. Zangar Marsh. I loved re-leveling through those places in my WoW leveling series. Hellfire Peninsula was probably one of my least favorite of the Outland zones, and I still didn't mind it that much, to be honest. And so overall, TBC, it's not bad, but it's not my favorite, and so that's why I put it where it is. Legion would be next. I think Legion was one of their best expansions. I mean, obviously we only got 2 more expansions to go, and I think Legion, it was great. They polished up a lot of the areas they needed to polish up. It wasn't too overwhelming. The zones were very cool. There were a little too many demons for my liking, but that's okay. They kept pushing content out, which was pretty nice to have. The raids were very cool. I enjoyed raiding. And world quests, I actually thought were a great way to kind of implement dailies in a fun way. Because when you think about it, it really is just a daily, but they mask it very well. I always said dailies seem more like a chore, while world quests seem more like a little adventure, right? You're like, oh man, something's going on in the world over here. I need to go help them out, right? While a daily, it was like, hey, you're back again. Go do the thing. And I guess world quests after a while start to feel like that, but especially having to go out into the world and having different world quests from other people and being able to do just random world quests, it was just it just had a different feeling to it, and I really enjoyed doing world quests. And Legion, I keep saying this, the only expansion where, since Wrath of the Lich King, the only expansion since Wrath of the Lich King where I've leveled 2 characters to max level. Normally I only level 1. Cataclysm I only did 1. Pandaria I only did 1. Draenor only did 1. And then Legion hit, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it twice. And I did. So that alone tells you how much more I enjoyed this expansion. Even just leveling through Legion. And I'm hopeful that BFA will continue down that path of fun, for me at least, and improvement on the game. And the number 1 expansion is Wrath of the Lich King. Beyond Wrath of the Lich King, I would put Classic WoW at the top, but, you know, it's not technically an expansion. Plus, Classic WoW, Vanilla WoW, whatever you want to call it. I'm very nostalgic about it. It was a long time ago. It was like 13, 14 years ago at this point, so my memory is also cloudy about it, but Classic WoW is obviously my top thing. It got me into gaming. MMOs in general, and then World of Warcraft, I guess not into gaming. I don't know what I'm saying. It's just is a different game at that point. But Wrath of the Lich King, I had the most fun raiding. I raided with Rob, Old Man Willikers, as you've probably seen on this YouTube channel. I used to be a fan of Rob, and I joined his guild, and it was kind of a Unforgotten Realms fan guild, and I joined it, and that was when I started making YouTube videos. So it was kind of inspiring to have somebody who's already established in like online content creation, playing with them and talking to them. And then just doing Ulduar, which easily one of my favorite raids of all time, Ulduar. Doing the Lich King fight, the zones. I love the zones. I love the stories. And the thing about the Wrath of the Lich King was it felt like everything built up to that Lich King fight. You know what I mean? It felt like the stories and the zones and everything tied into the Lich King in some way. Like if the Kalawak, which, prime race introduction there in the Wrath of the Lich King, the Kalawak, if they were having a problem fishing, it was probably tied into the Lich King in some way, like messing them up. You know what I mean? And it was just all the talent trees were still good. They're still fun. You still got a talent point like every level, which I miss quite a bit from leveling up. I've always said it, even if you get like 1 point into something meaningless, it feels good to put that point in. It could be like 1% dodge. I know Blizzard's like, we don't want you to put points in the meaningless stats like that or whatever, but like it feels good. It could be something as dumb as like put a point into red or blue and be like, nice, I get to put a point in blue. Like click, it could be meaningless and I would feel good because it's like I got a thing to spend. Either way, I think Wrath of the Lich King in general kind of paved the way for where WoW is currently. In Legion, at least. It obviously had some bumpy roads along the way, but it's a lot more casual, it's a lot more accessible, and it's a lot less grindy than it used to be. And I think just the story in general and the questing and the zones for Wrath of the Lich King and the people I played it with made it my favorite expansion. And that's my list. So thanks for listening to me ramble about my list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave yours in the comment section below. Like I said, I'm sure everybody's list is different. I'm sure some people have the same Wrath experiences I had, but in Burning Crusade. I know a lot of people love Burning Crusade. I know a lot of people didn't even play vanilla Classic WoW, and they played right away in Burning Crusade. So maybe you have nostalgia for Burning Crusade because that's when you got into WoW. Or even Wrath of the Lich King. Maybe you started in Wrath. Maybe even started in Cataclysm, so you enjoyed Cataclysm. Like, I don't know. Leave your comments in the comment section below, and give some reasoning behind it. All right, at least for your worst one and your best one. It doesn't have to be for all of them, because I kind of want to read through them all. And yeah, okay. See ya.